Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Small Business Stories. You know the voice, Dr. LL, Loralyn Mears here of Steeris, here with a different guest every week, bringing you all kinds of insights. And in our pre-meeting, because of course everybody has one of those before we go live with the show, our next guest, Ismael Wrixen, founder of ThriveCart, made a bold claim that he's cracked the code, quite possibly, on one-click payments. Ismael, we're anxious to learn more. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, really appreciate it. Thanks very much for having me. Yeah, bold claim indeed. We fixed that and we fixed buy now, pay later. So yeah, a few things hopefully to go over today.
Well, why not? We've had guests on the show who have gone up against behemoths. We've had one guest who is suing Walmart for infringement of her
Mhm.
designed product. We've had another guest who is single-handedly trying to take down Ticketmaster for just
Oh
really
wow.
doing a horrific job when it comes to protecting consumers from being out-purchased by bots. So, yeah, this is the land of bold claims. Bring it on. All right, before we get into that and defending said bold claims, what we want to better understand is what's going on in the world right now with respect to e-commerce and sales. Talk to us about some of those consumer behavioral patterns and shifts because we need to set the foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. So we deal specifically in kind of the sale of digital and physical products, mostly digital products, I would say. So kind of coaches, creators, online, teaching kind of online in terms of students, courses, and our platform kind of caters to all of that. And that was a sector that really took off, I would say, during the pandemic. A lot of side hustles, and then following the pandemic, side hustles became the main hustle. And then you see businesses that, came onto the platform and may have made their first sale at $20, $30. And we have some that are making north of $50 million a year now. So it's really impressive to kind of see the journey that they have taken over time. But, there are lots of pressures. There's inflation has been a huge thing for the past couple of years. We look at things like, employment rates and those kind of things. And really, I would say that the lifeline that we're seeing, at the moment in this industry specifically comes from two areas. One is that a lot of these coaches and creators own their communities. So that's kind of a really, really big part of the platform. And one of the things that we do is you kind of get your students in and then you can continuously market, new courses and new items to them over time. And as you know, like the expense of gaining a new customer is always going to be the highest the first time round. Continuously offering value and marketing to them, is very, very, I'm not going to say easy to do. There's a lot of hard work and insight and intellect and thought that goes into that. But having them all in one community, certainly it becomes easier than winning a new customer every time. So that then creates that kind of compounding, return on effort and increased lifetime value over time. And that is one area that is, we're seeing a lot of growth, in that kind of community, spot as well. And the other one is actually AI. And where we're kind of seeing the opportunities in AI is where the corporations cannot keep up. So what I mean by that is, just in the US alone, I think a survey done by OpenAI before they launched their own academy was there's 59 million Americans who say they want access to AI learning, but only 9 million are getting it through, the teachings that are put on by corporations. And that makes total sense, right? Because they're big corporations, they are in themselves trying to move in the direction of retooling, re-educating their staff and with a company that might have 20, 30, 40,000 staff, that's a very, very big job. And that's where we're seeing kind of the creator economy is filling that gap. There's, in my humble opinion, unless you work within one of those kind of big LLM companies, there is no such thing today as an AI expert. There are simply people that have spent more time with AI than other people. So the creators, are filling that gap of, okay, we are going to be looking at the latest thing, taking that, Claude for example, being one of the latest ones that's out, like taking that, understanding how it works, breaking down into bite-sized chunks, providing materials for people to train and retool themselves, getting them into a community with like-minded people that can all help each other over time. Those two poles are, touching each other and providing a lot of growth. So, yeah, I would say that kind of communities is kind of the big driver that we've been seeing for the past couple of years. But recently, AI is providing a huge amount of opportunities for people to kind of start filling the gaps that the corporations want to fill, but can't necessarily move fast enough themselves to do it.
Okay, there's a lot in there. So I want to break it down into a couple of sections. First, let's talk about the pressures on the creators. AI is both a leverage point and an opportunity, as well as a pressure point, because a lot of these creators have been displaced from jobs due to ageism, more efficient systems, things like that. So, talk to us first about some of these other pressures the creators are feeling and why they're coming to you. What are they looking to solve? Let's start there.
Yeah, it's definitely there are a lot of pressures that it creates, and I would say that one of the things that we've really noticed over the last year or so is it pressures in kind of advertising spend, kind of return on ad spend. That has become very, very challenging because you have a lot of bots now crawling. You're not always quite sure. There's a lot of narrative and chatter about SEO. Search engine optimization is dead. We now have GEO, and it's like it's not like the same principles of like that. If that anything, you do more SEO now than ever before, but you need to make sure you're doing it in a way that will be cited by the LLMs that are slowly taking over Google search. And as a result of that, one of the kind of knock-on pressures that we've seen is a lot of these creators and coaches have relied on affiliates to help drive their business over time. I mean, on our platform, we have about 900,000 affiliates helping drive the sales of the creators on our platform. And that's great. And that has worked. That has stood the test of time. But as those affiliates, their traffic is starting to be impacted as well now. You sort of have this compound effect. So as a creator, you need to make sure your platform is watertight, like it is really performing, on that side of your business and kind of giving you every single opportunity to do that. And we've actually taken it one step further. Like we recently acquired a business called VBout to actually help bring a lot of the email automation, CRM management, and we already have our affiliate platform, but things that will help to kind of, push that even further, kind of directly into the platform, because we see that as an area that needs a little bit of bolstering, and it will be, it should continue to be very, very profitable over time. But yeah, there are definitely kind of pressures in terms of how people, win new business. But kind of going back to my earlier point, that's why having communities is so important, because once you have them in there, they also become your affiliate. So your customer becomes your advocate, becomes your, that is a very, very important part of the overall cycle. So yeah, that's just one small example. But as you kind of touched on, there are lots of areas that they're getting displaced. There are pressures, and I think what will end up happening is the fly by night side of the industry, which is I've made a product, I've made a ebook or a course, and I basically used AI, or I kind of lifted stuff from maybe something I read elsewhere. That will end up, it'll get tougher and tougher for those particular, type of kind of products. But the ones who are, really changing people's lives, retooling them, reskilling them, helping them achieve whatever that kind of big hurdle is they're trying to get over, there will always continue to be value in that. And no matter how much you think you're friends with your ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you're using, then it's a very kind of different relationship, I would say. And that I think will be very hard to displace over time.
Okay, next, I want to briefly touch on the pressures that the consumers, right, of these creators' products are feeling, and in essence, what is uniting them as a community. Let's touch on that briefly, because then I want to move to you, which is really the exam question, where the pressure is.
No, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the general macro that we've seen. Lots of tariff, talk, and it's going back and forth now. I think it's somewhere near the Supreme Court, we're going to see what ends up happening there. I mean, we haven't seen, a downshift in terms of spend on our platform, and we do about $2 billion a year across all our creators, and that hasn't changed. But what I would say is that kind of leg up that we see every year last year did take a little bit of a pause, and I think it has a lot to do with, every time there's a government shutdown or this, so there are kind of, those pressures that exist. And those pressures are very real and they're very serious for people as well. But a lot of the things that are being sold through our platform, at least, are helping people to put themselves in a position to take the next step in their life or their journey. And the best investment people can make ultimately is in themselves. So that tends to not be the thing that goes. I mean, it might be a subscription to, your Spotify account or whatever. That might go first, and then you kind of go into the kind of betterment bits, later on. But yeah, I mean, overall, it is a good trajectory. I mean, the industry is set to go from 230 billion in 2023 to 600 billion by 2030. So there'll be, ebbs and flows over time, but the general direction of travel is, just more traction for creators and coaches.
Oh, yes. Or these consumers might toss their daily lattes at their favorite, whatever it is,
Yes.
cafe around the corner, right, in favor of, oh, maybe I should invest in this course. All right. Now the exam question, Ismael. We've talked about the pressure from a couple of angles. The people who are consuming the content that's driving the creators, right, to make their changes and adjustments and whatever it is that they have to do to attract, build, retain, sustain connection with their audience and provide value. You have the enormous task at Thrivecart of stitching it all together to make it happen, but you're under pressure. Talk to us about the pressures that your company faces trying to manage all this.
Yeah, like too many to go through today, certainly.
Oh, we've got
No, but
time.
all good. Yeah. No, I mean, ultimately, my responsibility and our responsibility is ultimately to make sure that people have, the means and access to achieve whatever it is they're trying to achieve. And so, an example of that is we specialize in funnels. So, funnel being you're selling one thing, but that thing can be supplemented throughout a series of steps to break it down for the end consumer to make it feel like a much smaller purchase for them. So you might start with a front end product that is, $50, $49 or 47, always with sevens. Like that seems to be the key. So
Oh, I use eight.
$47.
So that's a
I'll
good
use
insight.
eight.
Okay,
I'm going to
okay.
try that. I will
Mm.
try. Next time, hopefully next time I'm on, we'll swap notes on that. But so you start with that, then you're adding a bump or multiple bumps with conditional logic. Then you're getting a checkout, and then you're showing them a one-click upsell, completely friction-free, one-click downsell. That process turns a $50 transaction into, on average, per transaction, we're looking at about $180 on our platform. So that is much easier to break down for a consumer because you kind of see the steps of the value. It's like so I have a 7-year-old child. I give him Christmas presents or whatever it is. If I give him one at a time, he sees the value in all that as he goes. If I give him 10 in one go, he'll play with two of them and toss the other 8. So it's a very, very similar concept to that in terms of you break it down, it seems like smaller transactions, and it gives them the ability to actually see the value in the next thing they're taking along that journey. And actually, once you kind of look at the stats of things like refund rates and those kind of things, people that go through a funnel versus people that just offer one thing see much lower refund rates as well, because they're actually people like fully understand what they're purchasing, why they're purchasing, and it's a real like opt-in versus, oh, I just bought this thing, it did or didn't meet my immediate expectations, and therefore I'm just going to hit the refund button and see what happens. So that's like one side of where we're kind of very, very passionate about, and then making sure that's stitched up to your affiliate platform, your learning management system, and all that. So it's like it's one journey, and people don't have to go off to tons of different places. That's very fragmented, but that's why I touched on before the fact that we believe at least we've fixed buy now, pay later, which is a very fragmented process. It's a slow process. Look, I'm sorry, I'm going to take a step back. Buy now, pay later is great. Like on average, you see sales go up by about 14% for people that use buy now, pay later versus people that don't. But it is very limited. Like it's only in your market, only in your currency, only up to about $2,000, requires a soft or hard credit check depending on the customer. And that credit check means they have to go off to another platform, fill out a bunch of stuff with a firm, Klarna, whoever else, come back, and then still want to complete the transaction after they. And I'm sure you know what a credit check's like. It's not a fun experience, like going through that. Like, even if you're waiting a minute, it's not a fun minute you're spending doing it. It kind of takes the joy, I think, out of some of those bits. So what we have done is we've worked very hard to actually link this to your credit card instead. So it's a credit card backed program where, on average, this is then kind of targeted more at like those higher ticket items. I think the maximum we can go up to is just over $65,000 in a single payment that can be approved. And what it does is it will just ping your card and it will say, okay, does this person have available credit? Yes or no. It's going to put a reserve on your card for the entire transaction amount. Just like, if you go to a hotel and you check in and they put a room block on your card, all that. So it does that. And then as the consumer, you pay down interest free over 3, 6, or 12 months. So you can actually take that like $1,200 transaction and chunk that down into $100 a month. As you pay, it gets put back on your card, so it kind of releases the hold or the reserve that you have, interest free to you as the consumer. And like I said, it can go up to 12 months. Whereas with your buy now, pay later, it's 60 days maximum. So odds are, if you couldn't afford a $1,200 course on day one, you probably couldn't afford it on day 60 either. So that doesn't really help you get to where you're going to get to. So what we're seeing so far is approval rates at 85% versus 40% on buy now, pay later. As I said, the charges can go up to 65,000 instead of 2,000. The average order value has gone up by 3.1 times because people are like, well, I have available credit. I don't have to pay my card back within 30 days. So yeah, I want to use more of that. And in the US alone, there's $3.3 trillion of credit that is kind of locked in that cycle of like, well, I have it, but if I use it, I have to pay it back within 30 days, or I start paying 25, 30%, APR. And that then is a loan in itself. So this is a non-loan like solution to unlocking something a lot of people already have access to. It's a 5-second approval, not a 55. So it's 11 times faster. And importantly, the merchant like holds the relationship. So there's no like Klarna in the middle or whoever else. If there's a problem, obviously we are here, we're the platform. But the consumer owns that, which means on average, we're seeing repeat purchases go up by about 24%. So actually, it was a bold claim, but I think we've cracked the buy now, pay later. Oh, and the other one thing I would mention before I stop my ramble is it works in 30 countries. So that itself is very, very important, because the buy now, pay later the US is a massive market. So if you're just like, well, I can only offer it in America, it's like, great, that's still 330 odd million people. That's a lot of people. But for people who are in other parts of the world, or if you're in America wanting to sell to other parts of the world, South America, Europe, Australasia, or anywhere like that, this solution works, and it works across multiple different currencies as well. So we can put adaptive pricing in there, which buy now, pay later just will, like, you think someone might think like, oh, I've set that up, it will show to someone in Germany or the UK or wherever. It doesn't. So that's another thing that I think we've ticked off the list. So yeah, like, thrive now, pay later is our kind of internal saying for it. But I really feel like at least the data is showing so far that it's really kind of cracked the code in terms of, what can be done if you take a card linked approach instead of a loan charge approach, which is what the traditional buy now, pay laters do.
I'm not an authority on buy now, pay later, but because you've reduced all the friction around it, it does sound like you've cracked the code. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Just amazing.
I
The
hope
numbers
so.
are fantastic, right? You've got the evidence to substantiate your bold claim. I love it.
Yes, and we're seeing great adoption so far. I mean, we launched it last week, like out of beta into general. And we've already had over 2,500 customer, merchants sign up to that. So the demand is also kind of there for these kind of, and you were talking earlier about, what do the pressures that are being felt. This is a way to kind of help alleviate some of that pressure, because it's just sat in your wallet, not doing anything. And it's not in the bank's best interest. They don't want to have trillions of dollars sat on the sidelines that is like in reserve that could be called at any time, but is essentially not used. So that stat is like there's $4.1 trillion of credit in the US. 3.3 trillion is unused, is not being used. So that's actually like a very, very small amount comparatively as a percentage that then is being used. So that bit there, I think, creates a win-win-win scenario. The banks are happy, the merchants are happy, the customers are happy. Buy now, pay later might not be happy, but it still has a place. It's not like you can offer both. There's for a $500 transaction, you may go, look, buy now, pay later is perfect. I don't need to. The customer doesn't need to stretch that out over 12 months necessarily. But once you start some of these courses, the value they add, they're 10, 20, $30,000 courses for, the essentially sometimes the equivalent of a light, real world MBA, like that then really helps somebody get into a position where they can achieve whatever their goals might be that they might not have been able to fraction out and afford otherwise.
Excellent. I'm gobsmacked by all of the numbers and the data here. I think it's incredible. Really excited for you. What I want to dig into now is how Thrivecart really became a category leader, but you didn't take the loud American style, right? Venture backed hype machine. You're very, UK, right? In that regard. So was this intentional restraint, or did you discover something about sustainable growth that the rest of us are somehow missing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and everything happens for a reason, and some of it could have well have been, right place, right time. But I think the thing that keeps people on the platform is, so we went from a team of about 4 people 3 years ago to about over 200 people now. I don't know the exact number anymore. It keeps growing. So as a part of that, we are just able to continuously, speak to our merchants, speak to, end customers, understand the things that they want. And we're adding very, very quickly to the platform. And that's something we've been, constantly iterating over time. So that, is definitely helped. But I think if you kind of boil it down to a few things, one of them would definitely be you never need to leave the platform. And what I mean by that is, if you start off as, I've made and a lot of people are in this position. I've made my first sale on Thrivecart. Maybe I tested 4 or 5 different platforms and, Thrivecart was one of them. And you go up to make your first 10,000, 100,000, million, and then beyond. As your tech stack gets more complicated, which it will do, like we're not here saying like, look, we are perfectly designed for someone making, I think the biggest customer we ever had was making about $200 million a year. Like we're not perfectly set up for that. You're going to have a lot of custom, tech you're going to want to use and all of that. And I think we are the only, if not, pretty sure we are the only one in the market that says that's fine. Like we integrate with like 50 other partners, and where we don't, there are other ways through, Zapier and what else to do that. But at the same time, you can just embed us anywhere you want to go. So you can just say like, the funnel is your money making engine. You don't want to mess with that. You don't want to touch that if it's working really, really well. But let's say you want to go from, I'm on, the Thrivecart landing pages and I want to move that to WordPress or Elementor or WooCommerce or whatever. Yes, you can. Like, just take our code, embed us wherever you want to go, and continue scaling. We're not here to get in the way. We're not locking you in. Like, you own your accounts with Stripe, PayPal, or whoever else. Like, we don't own that in the way some other platforms do. So with us, you have full flexibility. With some other platforms, it's more like if you leave the platform, we own the token data, so you lose your subscriptions, or your subscriptions will just continue to be on our platform, and you need to go make new ones elsewhere. And that becomes very prohibitive because on day one, I don't know if I'm going to be successful. I don't know what's going to work for me. And I don't know about you. I can't think of many things that I signed up for, let's call it 10 years ago, that I'm still necessarily using today. Like, there's always something different. And if I had to make that as a hard decision as, a creator, I would probably be in a disadvantaged position because I backed a horse and I don't know if they're, going to make the investments. Look at AI. Like, some of us are moving very fast. I think we are. Some of us are moving less fast. Some are in the middle. And it's like, if Thrivecart had just said like, look, you're locked into us. That's it. We own everything. We're not going to invest in AI. So you then have a really tough choice to make. And it's like, okay, I have to kind of start my business over. I have customers and they'll come with me and all of that kind of stuff. But it's just a lot of friction we wanted to remove from that. So I think that's one of the reasons that it's been so successful. It's you would need you're kind of hard pressed to why you would need to leave the platform because we never make that an option for you in the first place.
Right. Now, you haven't said it, but you've implied it. Really, what you're talking about is revenue psychology, right? So you've got this tool that works at the moment of decision, the checkout. Talk to us about what you've learned about human psychology, applied psychology, really watching where people hesitate versus convert.
Yeah, you mean from the customer side?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Because you
so
enable the
I,
systems, right, that make the creators more successful, which in turn makes Thrivecart more successful because you've understood what the customer needs at the end who's going through the experience.
yeah, I mean the customers are. I mean, it depends by business and merchant by merchant. But generally speaking, because most of of that 2 billion volume it is in like the digital product space, you know, I would say that in some cases, there can be a healthy level of skepticism or because you're not getting a physical product. So like I bought a pair of sneakers and the sneakers arrived and it's done. It's and as you know, the value is in the eye of the beholder. If I give you a 10,000 word ebook or course to go through, that might be worth more or less to you than the next person. So I think from a kind of psychological perspective, going back to the notion of funnels and breaking that down into smaller chunks, I mean, a lot of people actually just use our platform to get people into a community essentially for free. And they're like, well, I want the customer. Once they're there, they're going to meet other like-minded people, and I'm going to be able to sell them other courses and other materials over time. So it's a bit of a slower process, but you end up with somebody that will then pay you a lot more over time for expertise and those things. And I think that the more educating people can do up front, the easier that decision becomes. So things like interlacing webinars or auto webinars and those kind of things, and really kind of taking a step back and saying like, look, the more I can teach you before you give me money, the more you're likely to then give me money, but also more money as well. Whereas kind of on the physical product side, you get two kind of scenarios. You either get like impulse purchases or you get like, I know exactly what I want. I need this in this size or for this particular solution. And yes, this ticks the box, so I will purchase it. Like, so and we do, a very, very healthy volume of kind of physical products as well. Or often people are supplementing digital products with, say, a physical book or something like that. But I say like that side, but yeah, there's a lot less, focus that goes on to the kind of decision-making process for kind of those digital products. And ultimately, the life cycle of the journey is entirely different for that than it is for the physical, the kind of actual kind of physical products. But I would argue that if you get it right, the person buying a digital product from you is likely to pay you a lot more money over time than you may necessarily get on the physical piece, because learning is forever. Like if I need a pair of sneakers, well, I'll buy a pair of sneakers once a year, twice a year, whatever. Like, it kind of becomes routine and clockwork and that. So you may get a repeat purchase from me. I may find something else of yours that I like as well, but I'm in a shopping mood. Like that is the day I've decided to do shopping. On the other side, it's like, I don't know what I don't know. So you might keep teaching me things over time. And if you can break that down into like demonstrate, then ask for, money and keep it in that order, that cycle will keep flowing, sometimes into perpetuity. And then you get into that stage where people are advocating for you and they're like, oh, my buddy needs a course teaching me about it. I did this as well because me and my buddy happen to have similar interests. That's why we're buddies. So then you get into that cycle of like, well, then they're promoting the course for you. And yeah, our platform lets you reward them, in various ways, monetary and non-monetary ways, for that. But yeah, I mean, ultimately that psychology on like the digital side is something that if you crack that, I mean, I think, we're seeing some of our larger customers are making north of $50 million a year on the platform. And it's through these products where they're kind of actually then able to say, well, this customer's been a customer for the last 5 years. And it's because that kind of human desire to want to best themselves and learn really never stops. Like if it's something that, can just continue along their journey as they go. And as long as you're providing value, they trust you. And that trust, I'm not getting that trust from a pair of sneakers. I am getting it from having a one-on-one interaction with you or a group interaction or seeing other people that have, had a great success with it. Whereas with a physical product, it's more like I'm looking for negatives. Did the sneakers fall apart? I'm not looking for, did the sneakers change my life? Like, it's a very, very different type of end goal they're looking for.
I want to make sure our listeners are going to be clear on this because you said something, but I want to call it out. A lot of coaches, course creators, and whatnot don't end up finding success because they cannot build a community. Do they have to have a pre-built-in community to come to Thrivecart? Or are you saying that there are synergies because there are so many other people there buying similar things, self-improvement and whatnot, lifelong learners that are there on the platform, that you get that synergistic effect that they might come across your course and join your community?
It's definitely, you do not need a community to be on Thrivecart or to be successful on Thrivecart. What we're saying is the people who drive the highest lifetime value are those that have the communities, because then there is that there is that kind of, cycle effect, over time as well. And if you're then launching, let's say you're launching a new course, the first people you're going to launch it to is your community, because they're going to give you great feedback. They're going to tell you obviously what they like, what they don't like, how much they'll probably pay for it. You'll take that, refine it, and then use that as you go out to the broader world and market. And a lot of them will pay you for the course along the way. So you definitely don't need a community to start, but the ones who are the most successful on our platform end up going in that direction and then end up doing really, really good things. And it might be that, eventually they end up, using, our community, if you're kind of at that 50 million plus level, there might be enterprise grade, community softwares that you then want, and they can continue that knowing that, they can embed our carts and funnels wherever they want to go as well. So we're very, very flexible. You don't need anything to get started. No, you just need an idea and just to kind of get out of your own way. But the goal, in my humble opinion at least, is you should be aiming to get towards that point where you do have a community. And a lot of things we're working on are AI tooling to help you do that, help you build the community, moderate, have agents working in there, automating the workflow. So a team of one, can manage a community of 5,000 people. Like, that is now entirely possible. Roll the clock back 3 or 4 years, that's a heavy lift. Even with a platform like ours or potentially other platforms out there, that was still a heavy lift. So it will get easier and easier to do that over time. But that should be if you're trying to build a business that can actually scale and be scale sustainably, because not all profit is good profit. Like, that is the direction of travel that we see the most success with.
As I was preparing for our show, I came across sort of a conundrum with your business that I'm fascinated by, Ismail. So, how do you feel about creating something, this infrastructure, that's actually meant to be invisible?
Yeah, it's great question. I mean, we try not to get in the way as much as possible. Like, there are lots of ways to customize it so that essentially they never know we're there, apart from a very small, like, this legally required, this is the company processing the transaction in. Well, we sit on top of Stripe and PayPal and everything else, but yeah, it is there. Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes both ways, because when we were really small and scaling the business, going back to when it was like 4 people, yeah, I mean, there was a point of like, well, what's Thrivecart? What's this thing? Like, but now we're at like, I mean, we've crossed 8 billion in sales, 75,000 customers on the platform, and 900,000 affiliates. I think we've got 12 million students on the platform at last count. So now it's actually like, oh, it's Thrivecart. My money's safe. Like, okay, I understand. And also, the merchant is that we don't get in the way of the relationship between the merchant and the customer, or kind of the creator and the customer. That's very, very important. And we're not sat there being like, we are the bank, we make the decision on refund policies, chargebacks, like these things that will naturally happen over time. We're here to actually help the creators and go like, okay, our data identifies this. Here's some things we think you can do about it. Here are some ways that maybe. So on that side, I think we are kind of helpful to the creators. And I think we provide a bit of, the creators don't need us in the sense that they have their own credibility. They have their own trust, their own brands. We don't want to get away with it. We just hope that we add at least kind of 1% of, yes, this is secure, and you've heard of Thrivecart, and you're happy to put your credit card or debit card or ACH or whatever down to make this transaction. So we do try and stay like as invisible as possible within what we are and aren't able to do. But yeah, you're certainly not being being on our platform as kind of the end consumer, you're not a Thrivecart customer, you are a customer of the merchant. And that's something we're like really, really strongly passionate about, and that will never change. That's not going, you will not have me back in a year being like, hey, we've launched the Thrivecart is the front of your brand now. That's just, some companies went in that direction. That's kind of just not for us.
Excellent. Now, as we're nearing the end of our show, I just have a couple more questions. So you've achieved great success, right? You're moving billions of dollars through your platform, tens of thousands of customers, millions of end users. When you achieve that kind of success, external pressures change. So what has success taught you or revealed about you that struggles never did?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm like, I was about to say uniquely placed. There's lots of people that could do what I'm doing, I'm sure. Um, I think like the one thing that has helped with my background, and so my background, recovered investment banker. That's kind of where I started. And then we ran an M&A business in the tech space for well, we still have it, FE International, sold about 1,500 tech companies. Most of those were, non-funded, so no VC, bootstrap companies, anywhere between kind of $1 to $10 million ARR, in terms of so valuations. Let's call it, up to, 200-300 million is kind of like sweet spot. So, but lots of kind of small companies in there as well, and that kind of service related passion of like every single customer in that business was important. Everything was like life changing to them, like whether a deal went through or didn't go through, what the terms were, what are they not seeing, what do they see, like how like the highest number might not actually be the best offer, and like let's figure that, like that has never gone away from me. And even though we have 75,000 people on the platform today and still growing, we try to bring that in like every day. So the pressure isn't from investors. The pressure isn't from, oh, well, I'm sure there is pressure, but that's not the thing that keeps me up. The thing that keeps me up is like, how's the platform performing? What is our kind of CPU usage at? What are we, doing that's next to help somebody wake up and have another email in their inbox being like, here's the transaction that processed while you were asleep. Those are the things that I put a disproportionate amount of like time and effort into thinking about. And yeah, that's the kind of stuff that keeps me up at 3 a.m. of like, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? How do we get ahead of this? So I think that, we have to balance, we definitely have to balance like new technology and developing features for the sake of developing features versus delivering a bulletproof platform. And I would say that, that split is something that we need to keep, in check and in focus, because there's no point giving you the latest and greatest thing if the platform goes down or like something like that happens, because one sale, and this is how important it is, like one sale could mean the difference between somebody doing something or not doing something, making a payment they need to make or not making, keeping a member of staff or not keeping a member of staff. So I don't care if it's $1, if it's free, if it's $1 million, like that has to go through, period. There is no wiggle room in that whatsoever. So that's the thing in terms of pressure, is like, how do you keep that going as you scale? And if you look at some of the other platforms out there, not that, and I'm not going to name names, I mean, people can do their own research, but like not many platforms scale beyond $250 million in payments a year. And there's a reason for that. Like the level of investment you have to make to get to that point where you can be processing billions is a very, very, very big 8-figure sum on a continuous basis to keep that thing going and keep the scale going. So we've especially seen with all, the vibe coding and AI, like 5 years ago, there were like 4 of us doing, like 4 or 5 companies max doing this. Now there's probably 50. And it's like, yeah, they may be the shinier coin today and you might have got a great deal or this or that. But what is going to happen when they hit that critical mass and they're not investing that money because they may not even be able to? Like, we were just very fortunate, like, to be able to do that. So, yeah, I would say that that's one thing that we it is, from a pressure perspective, that's one thing that, is very, very important to us.
Where can people find you or learn more about Thrivecart?
So just thrivecart.com. Yeah, that's where we are. You can find us. Yeah, most people usually work out my email address as well. So yeah, but we are around. Very, very happy to talk to anybody about the platform or anything else. And yeah, always growing the team as well. So if anybody feels passionately this is what they want to do or get involved with, always happy to talk as well.
Excellent. Ismael, last question, signature question of the show. If we peeked into that closet of yours over there in the UK and looked at your footwear, is there a pair of shoes, boots, something else that personifies who you, Ismael Wrixen, are and represents your personality?
My on clouds, they're the ones. They're the one. Comfort and speed. Those are the two things. Yes, that's it. I wear one outfit these days, so I don't have time to. I used when I was a banker. I used to, what time am I going to wear today? Like, has to be different, etc. Now it's like, what could I chuck on and get out because we're running faster than we can keep up with at some point. So yeah,
I get it. What's clean? Next. All right, right? Yeah.
exactly.
All right. With that, it's a wrap. Ismael Wrixen, congratulations on cracking the code on Thrive Now, Pay Later. That's wonderful to hear. And just congratulations on your tremendous success. Thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you. So I'm getting kicked out of my room. Sorry, guys.